Welcome to the Devoted Way podcast, all about magic and miracles with me, Sora Schilling. It's time to hone in on your intuition, become artful, respectful, and nuanced with your relationship with energy, and live life based on your design. Your unique blueprint encoded with stardust from the ethereal realm and blood from those that have come before you. You know what to do and how to be, so trust in yourself. For a number of months, I've been on this deep healing journey that's been quite uncomfortable around what does it actually mean to be visible. So often in our spiritual communities, we speak about speaking our truth, being our authentic self. But again, the way that I work, I love taking these incredible spiritual concepts and breaking it down in a way that feels much more cleaner or more accessible to myself in regards to how I may unpack it. And one of the stories that I've been working with since I was, probably 18 years old was that I am motivated by moving through this ancestral wound around money, this space of gathering a lot of money or making a lot of money. And then all of a sudden, either through just chance, divine timing, a bad luck, whatever you want to call it, quote, luck, that it all goes away. It disappears. Something bad happens, quote, bad or traumatic happens, and then money just leaves. And then you're back to square one with like a zero balance, a negative balance, and you have to start all over again. Starting all over again is a story from an immigrant story for sure as well. And so for a long time, that was what I focused on, was this idea of the reason that I continue to grow and then feel like I'm either back to square one or in the negative. And then I have to push forward and be resilient and keep going and fighting and moving into life is because of my ancestral wounds around money and this immigrant story of working your butt off and, getting only just a little bit of what is due to you, for example. And it's only recently that I was sitting in doing my own devoted energy self-coaching method, which inside of Devoted Energy Coaching School, we speak a lot about working on you first and using the method as a way to honor your own self-coaching healing journey. And so working with that and the modality of breath, because that is also a foundation of Devoted. It's all about the inhale and the exhale. And so using breath work in conjunction to that, I had started to realize that there was a couple of memories that came through of these times of money being made and money being lost in my family. What I never considered. And that's why I love energy coaching, because you can mind the F out of a story that you are so attached to in the belief that this is the thing that is why you are stuck where you are. And you can perpetuate the cycle of looking at it over and over again and be like, I'm peeling the onion. There's another layer to this. There's another layer, which is true. Yes. And what's amazing about energy coaching is what comes to the surface through the unconscious is what you don't see, right? That's why it is in the shadows. You do not see it. And when we are energy coaches, we often talk about memory and we get really curious around what happened right before or what happened right after. And in the 20 plus years of my existence, in this idea that I am walking through this path of learning and clearing through my ancestral karma around money is something that I noticed that has happened before the money, which blew my mind and my heart open, which is that every story that I have either witnessed or I have heard around my family, and especially connected to my father, is that it wasn't only that my father was able to create a lot of wealth and then something would happen and then it would be lost, and a lot of it not due to his fault, actually, but what happened right before that. And what happened before that is I am my father's daughter. And my father is multidimensional, multi-talented. He can pick something up and excel at it. And he was that golden child that his mother loved so wholeheartedly and saw so much love and success in his future and continued to encourage him to get out of this particular lived experience he was having, which is why he immigrated from Korea to the States. But every single time my dad excelled at something where he was visible and seen and celebrated for the incredible knowledge he had, or the way that he saw things, or his ability to be creative. He was an amazing dancer and he loved to play the guitar and he loved pop culture and he was like the cool person. And so, anytime there was positive reinforcement and impact that was made in his existence, all of a sudden there was family members around him that wanted to squash it. And so would steal his money or do things that basically made him hesitate whether or not he was feeling safe enough to actually be that full, diverse, dimensional, amazing person that he was from his soul's essence. And so I, during this time, have been looking at life, walking with my eyes wide open around this opportunity to notice, what if my story isn't about money? I have attached to that story for such a long time that I have, for a while now, have no idea what to do with that. No idea what to do with this new perception and this new lens of it's actually not about the money. It's about me being visible and feeling safe through my own experiences and through the experiences of my ancestors. So, for example, let me give you two tangible things about feeling safe and in my visibility, which might resonate with each and every one of you, those that are listening, our devoted star beams that are listening. So there was an experience where I had almost died, and there was an attempted kidnapping on me. And this is a story that some of you might already know. I don't harp on it. It's not one where I share a lot anymore because I want to create a reaction from people. And also because people have certain experiences. So we want to just emphasize that there's a little T or a big T trauma conversation right now that's happening. So if you need to pause and not listen, then really encouraging you to do what you need to do. But I'm not going to go into the story itself because sometimes I find that when we are in these spaces of sharing our stories, we want to share the one that makes the most impact or the one that creates a lot of kind of feeling in other people. So that's not my point here. My point is what happened afterwards. Okay. So again, looking at a story and then looking at either something that happened before or after. And what happened afterwards was, number one, I felt empowered because I was able to survive and I fought. And so that question that I lingered in my mind since I was really little was, since I was very small, I asked myself, if there was a crisis, what would I do? Would I freeze? Would I fight? Like what would happen? And so I knew in everything in my bones that I am a fighter. So I thought that was really empowering. The second thing that happened was myself and my friend who was in that experience, we gathered all of our colleagues and we invited a professional to come in and we spoke about how to protect ourselves in these types of situations. And we were very open about what happened and what we did to protect ourselves, and had an expert share a little bit more about what you should do in certain situations. And so we wanted to educate. And the thing that came through to me was, I am here to survive so that I can continue to create spaces where people not only feel safe, but they have the tools and the vehicles to help them survive and fight and continue to go on in their life. Okay, great. The other thing that I said amongst everyone, and I continue to say as part of this story, was that I was pretty well known. My perception, right? Again, we all are living in our own perception. My perception is I was very well known in this community. I was very, very well known in this city. I partied a lot. I knew people, quote, like the people. And I felt so incredibly special and fabulous and yeah, I felt like the Korean American who knew how to dance really well, and people were always asking me if I wanted a drink, or they just knew about me and of me. And I loved that popular place of existence, that status of being known and being visible, right? Being an influencer at that time when there wasn't anything even called an influencer at that time. And I wore it as a badge of honor, right? I was someone who looked different and people resonated with that and people knew my name. Well, that also meant that during this experience, my story was because of that, they knew to target us, right? And so I was targeted. And then I was afraid for my life and I almost died. And so throughout my now adult journey from that time period, I loved knowing that I liked being in front of the crowd. Like I love being on stage. I love people knowing who I am. It really just honors my Aries and my Taurus, really, like beauty and existence and leadership and people listening to me, right? Love it. But underlying underneath that is this incredible fear that when people know who I am going to die. And that I did not actually realize. And so every time in my existence from this point in my entrepreneurship of me serving the community, what I realized was visibility was not a thing that I really embraced. I would embrace it to an extent and then I would shut down. You'll notice that in my socials. I will go really visible. People will start really interacting. They'll share and then I will go quiet, or I promote, or I go into like Sora, sovereign warrior, piercing through the bullshit. Let me call things out. Let me embrace my activism. I am here for you to like honor the discomfort and witness and take some responsibility. And then I feel the movement of people like riding this wave of understanding and support. And then I shut down. And I used to make the excuse that it was my projector. I wholeheartedly believed it was my projector self, that I ebb and flow, that I am introverted, that I ride the wave of inspiration and energy, and then I go in and I have to isolate. There's truth, and there is hiding because of this fear that resonates within me. And through devoted energy coaching, the self coaching model, I was able to really understand this and now start deconstructing it. Does it mean that I'm fully on the other side, that I'm, quote, healed, right? Like, bless the goddess. I don't have any problems with it. Absolutely not. If anything, I see it now over and over again, minute by minute in my existence. And it is uncomfortable as F right now. But my awareness of it now means that I notice what is an excuse, what is me hiding, what is the truth for now until a new layer of truth comes through. And I am so incredibly grateful for a method that helps me really go there. And so when it comes to visibility for each and every one of you, you might already have the story that you have some challenges with visibility. And you might have like very specific memories. My encouragement is to consider anything before or after that might provide some more information, or a next evolution of your healing, meaning what's the next thing that you're looking at walking with, the through line that is ready for your initiation. For those of you who resonate with some of what I'm saying and you find that your, quote, the thing that you're always working on may not be the thing, then just even noticing that. You don't need to come up with it. You don't need to have for yourself force your mind to whip up what that understanding of that next layer is, but simply just knowing that maybe the thing that you've been working on for the 20 plus years may not be the full story in itself, can activate something in you. So inside of Devoted Energy Coaching School, one of the things that myself and our gems are such a believer in is stepping into the container and being visible in a safe, sacred space where they get to be themselves in this. And as we begin to understand this layer of visibility, because I am the founder of Devoted Energy Coaching School, it's not that the information is mine and mine alone. It is through all of my teachers and the Great Mother. But as I continue to walk this edge of visibility, so does the students inside this container. And so even witnessing devoted and devoted's visibility, or even noticing from an outside perspective around how I have been visible or not visible is something that I can't share myself, right? Because I'm blinded by my own experience. What I see through my lens, or even my sacred witness sees, is not always also what other people see. And so Catherine, on the other hand, has been on this journey with myself for a long time. Like, she started before Devoted Energy Coaching School with me, and then she entered in. And so she has seen where I stand, my challenges, my ways of being visible, ways of hiding, how I do it inside of the space, outside of the space, in public, in my personal life. She knows everything in that regards. And so she's going to share a little bit about her perception around my journey around visibility.
Visibility. Oh my goodness. It's been such a thing. And as both of us are projectors, I feel like we even fell into that. Oh, it is that ebb and flow. Like, even the consideration around what is that story or that big thing that we identify with, and that Sora identifies with, either for herself or for Devoted. It's so easy to attach to the thing that can be easily identified. And then we just hang on to that. And even I remember, Sora, when you came to me and you were like, what if that's not the story? And both of our minds just exploded, because we were both so in this story that the story it was about the money. And we really felt that and saw it and felt all the dynamics of that. And so to me, it shows the power of Devoted Energy Coaching School, and it shows the power of our brain really, really, really wanting to be the thing that tells us what's real. Like, this is something tangible that I can attach to. It makes sense. Money's catchy. Like, we can talk about that. So many people feel that they connect to that story. And so, the beauty and the thing that I love so much about Sora, about Devoted, about being inside of this container is watching the continued evolution and the willingness to consider maybe that's not the story, even when a story has been attached to for so long. And so this consideration of visibility, Devoted is growing. Sora is growing. You've seen her socials. They're like going. There's all these new photos and colors and the beauty that's there. And Sora can share. Like, if you're on her email list, you've heard her stories. And that happens inside of Devoted. Like, how Sora shows up in Devoted is unreal. And it is truly an honor to walk this road and to see the continued evolution. And
even that, right? Like, noticing how when we're inside of Devoted Energy Coaching School, which is known as DEX, when we're inside of there with our gems, you're right. I bring it all. I bring my stories. Yes. I bring what's happening in my life. I bring the connections and the way that I have as a 6'2" in human design to be that mentor and guide and breaking down info, because it's a safe container. It is held in the prayer field. And then when it's me being outwardly in the world, right? I know my coaches are always like, bring that Sora outwardly. And I am not sure how to do that. Like, yes, I can write well now and I feel more comfortable, but that inspiration of that container is not there. And there is sometimes this resistance or this friction around it. So, totally. Really just noticing that too.
Yes, because inside of DEX, like, you're constantly riffing. We're in class, and then there's a story that pops up that I've never heard before. And we've been in conversation and been talking about things for so very long. And you connect things, you bring in that sixth line of yours that's tried all of the things. And then you're like, let me tell you all of these ways that maybe I, quote unquote, didn't do it right, if that's the verbiage, or I tried this thing and just utterly failed, or whatever those things are. And you bring all of that with such life and humanness. And I do see glimpses of that inside of socials and inside of emails. And I see the moments exactly like what you talked about earlier when you were like, you notice how I'll bring it and you show up and you expand and you're visible, and then it's oh, and then we just turn inward and it gets really quiet. And I don't see you doing that in Dex. I don't see you
I don't
turning
do it at
inward.
all in Dex. You're right. I don't.
I did not think about that. Yeah.
And it's not that my energy levels are any different inside of Dex. There are times where I have things happening and I still show up and it's clean and dynamic and I feel my internal confidence in there. And it's a natural way of being. Like this is like the natural me.
Yes.
And then I go out there in the world and I can't, I'm at the moment noticing this real tension of not being able to fully step into myself. And I've had a lot of mentors and dear friends say, Sora, people have no idea what you've done or experienced or how much wisdom you have. And why are you not sharing that? And I think, I don't know. I
I
don't
don't
know why
know.
I'm not. And it's a sense of, well, if I am very visible, what happens then? If as a person with immigrant families, with a person who is a person of color, a woman of color, an Asian American woman, right? Like, what kind of attack will happen? And what happens then? Also, with me having the quote audacity to be in a spiritual self development industry, in an entrepreneurship where it's mostly a lot of white spaces. And so I can feel now how that has really squashed my ability to honor myself and brag and boast. Like I've been
Mm.
looking at that word of bragging and boasting and being like, I can't boast. I can celebrate. I don't know how to actually
Mm.
brag and boast. Say like, I'm the shit. I'm pretty darn freaking good I am with what I do without it feeling like I'm trying to prove something. Right. So even inside of devoted energy coaching school, it is one of the only energy coaching schools out there. It is one of the only ones where we're spending this much intimate time with folks.
Yeah.
It is a certification program. Like it is years of my experience and it is amazing. But every time I even consider that, everything in me wants to just be like, I don't want to boast about it.
Yeah. And I'm just feeling this and I'm like, and yet you talk about how you're the shit inside of Dex. Like
You're
you
right.
are like, oh, I mean, you just bring all of it. And even what you mentioned, you're like, even when there are things going on in life and you're like really heavy, you just show up. There isn't that tension. There isn't that, oh, I can't show up for class. It's almost it ignites something in you. And so I'm so curious that like it is the safety of that container, but I'm curious if there's anything else that's there that feels different about Dex versus outward visibility. Like, I don't know. Does anything come up for you? Because it is so fascinating to see that difference.
Yeah. I wonder from the lens of human design as a projector, instead of Dex, everyone has invited me to
I
be
was
there as
wondering
their
that too.
mentor, as their
Mm-hmm.
teacher, as their spiritual guide, as the one who's going to cut through the bullshit. Like they all signed up for it. And so I'm here for it. Versus in the external world, through the lens of design, how do I share through through newsletters and socials? And yes, those that are following or have subscribed are saying yes to that invitation. And are they? Like that's
Right.
like the little hesitation
Yeah.
thing. Um, and also the desiring of the feedback. And in newsletters and in socials, I find that our devoted community, I love that they read it, they share their responses sometimes, but often we're so bombarded with so many different
Yes.
emails in our inboxes and on socials that we may be watching and reading and loving up, but we're not necessarily commenting. And I have this dynamic approach of feeding off of the energy and the
Yes.
vibes of people, which is probably why we do a lot of events where people can
Right.
come so that I can feel them and they can feel me in that true authenticity, meaning my soul's essence of my embodiment of the fullness of me being there. Okay, so with that being said, because it's not just only about me, but see how I even do that? I can't even let it be only about me. Like, how
Yeah.
fascinating, folks. I mean, seriously, star beams. Also, though, the gems inside
Mhm.
of our container, also really visible inside of our container. And we are constantly encouraging them to be visible outside. And that's my job, my responsibility, taking some ownership on doing the work for myself too, so that it feels clean and clear for others to do the same. But I feel like our gems have learned what it means to really be them and to show up as them. And oh, I just love it.
I mean, yes. And I also feel like when we all start out, it's so, can I really do this? Can I really say the real thing? Can I really, really be me? And, I don't even know that I would have attached it to visibility, but that feels true. It feels true to me that this idea and the question around, can I really be me? Can I show up in a group space and like, oh, the stories of group spaces, and if we can or cannot be held, if we can or cannot be seen, if people can hold what we are really going to bring in, it can feel like a lot. And so there's this dynamic that I feel like for some it's a slow unfolding, and they slowly start, and then there's a moment, and it just all of a sudden they post that loom, or they share that social, or they type out that really long share inside of their personal channel, and we're just, oh, they're here. And others, it's like day one, and they're just fully there. So like, this is who I am. You shall accept me and see me and all. And it's just so fun to see the different like personalities and dynamics show up that way.
But even those,
And
they're that, and there's a little, I hope you can still receive me fully.
yeah,
Like, I'm going to be me, but I'm also waiting for the impact that you're not going to accept me for me being me because I'm so full in that way. So there is still that piece.
yeah,
But also when they get to that other side of the looms and the shares and the being themselves, where they call themselves out and they can laugh at themselves,
yeah,
where they're like, oh, I did that thing again. Or instead of saying, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm giggling. Like, I'm so sorry. And they're like, oh, giggle. I can't stop right now. Like, I'm just going to embrace this. There's a shift that happens where they acknowledge the humanness or the things that people have probably told them since they were small, that that's not okay. Or can you stop that? Or people cringed over it. And they're now accepting that's part of their personality, their way of being. And they can call themselves out and be like, I love this about me. I don't care anymore.
yeah. And then how it naturally also begins to trickle, because you watch them start showing up on socials. You watch them start sharing in their stories. You watch them start being like, oh, I just had this session and this just happened. And OMG, like I have all of these feelings. And and I I watch their visibility, my visibility, like the process of what we all go through. From It's also a process of seeing ourselves in that, like that the maturity of watching our own through line, and that our visibility isn't so much about showing up and how are people going to receive me, because that's often a question, and it's how am I receiving myself, and how am I really just saying the thing, like being clear and not over fluffing on, like, what's another way for me to say it? Just adding in all the words to actually hide what's really happening, you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
um like you can have
And
a full
being
share,
okay.
but
Yes. And
yeah.
being okay that you are, as humans, we are uncomfortable beings in a human body, that we have quirks. And so when even consider visibility, like you said, which is incredible, which is it's not about what other people think of us or what other people see, but more about us being able to fully be ourselves and notice when we're uncomfortable or when we want to rescue someone, and or when we feel like someone's mad at us and we're projecting some stories and we're going to bring it back in. It's this awareness while also being like, I'm fully here and present. I'm going to be me, and we're going to just navigate this together in a way that might be messy or really funny or whatever it is. It is what it is. And I find that happens when you are in diverse spaces. you can't actually do that in spaces where people have the same upbringing or the same way of navigating how to be quote kind or not ruffle feathers. We've all been brought up in certain ways. So if we're only with people that have been brought up in the same way, you're in that same weird vortex and there's unhidden truths and ugliness that doesn't want to come up. That's not being visible and fully seen for yourself.
No, and it's also not like, we talk about being uncomfortable, but I don't, now that I've been right in spaces where I am absolutely engaging with folks that have had different upbringings, have different experiences, have different stories. There's a flavor of uncomfortableness of that, what you said about the calling myself back, and also the being able to voice what I'm looking for is, or what I need is. So I'm sharing, oh, I'm feeling all this. I'm feeling really uncomfortable, or I'm totally seeing this thing that I do. And I know that that's maybe not healthy. Or I'm like, actually, I'm feeling these feelings of this experience. And I've been told that that's not healthy, but really that's my way of processing. I'm not looking to be rescued. I simply need to vocalize and voice this out, share this. And then I have myself, like I have it. I just need to be witnessed. I simply need to be acknowledged that this was spoken up and out. I don't need anyone to rescue me. And oh goodness. And the visibility. I mean, I just think about all of that. And then of course you think conflict triangle. You think like, where are you in that? And
Yeah.
so, the identity of that, but oh goodness. Yeah.
And it's great because people get to share their stories, right? So, for example,
Yeah.
if they start understanding my mother, Korean mom coming to the States, immigrant, like, was the baby of the family of a upper class, and all she wants to do is coddle her children and be a martyr. There's going to be someone else who has a story of not that story, but understands mom and martyrdom, or like mom,
Totally.
right? Like there's that. So that's why me and my best friend know each other very well. We've got these mom guilts, but from two different cultures, let's say. Or something I share about a particular thing, and someone else, it's they understand it from their upbringing from religion, or their upbringing from something else. And so there's a way we can begin to come to a better understanding of humanness, but also really honor the different references from each other. And I feel like that too, like, for example, your way of not ruffling feathers and being kind, there's a different way of me doing that of ruffling feathers, mine coming from a very traditional Korean background of you don't speak anything, you just say yes, and you have your own story. So there's this correlation that happens. But with our gems, to see them, for example, one of them was able to not ask permission, but state at their work that they were cutting their hours, coming in early, shifting their entire schedule so that they could, and they didn't even have to explain why. But the reason why is because they can then join decks and be here and be present. But they just told them what was going to happen. And then we have another one who is like out there on socials, had this idea that they were invisible and no one would see them, and now committed every day, it seems like 3 times a day, putting out a video on socials. Like, it is amazing. Do you have any references of people too, of gems?
Oh my goodness. I feel, oh gosh, there are so many. I think that one thing I love is the fact that we get to come into the community space first and say, okay, I'm going to do this thing and I'm really nervous about it. And so then we all know to come and support that person. So I know someone, they came in and said, I'm going to do an event. I'm nervous. I'm scared, but I'm going to do this thing. And so we all knew it was coming. And so then we could love them up on socials. Or we had another divine gem who was going to do some lives and share their expertise in this different way. And they weren't really sure how that was going to go. So then again, we all knew that was coming. We all knew to kind of go and support. And we each have our own way of that specific visibility of what that looks like. Or it's our email lists. Okay, we're really gonna start sharing here, and would love, just like what you said, Sora, right? Like earlier, sometimes it's so hard to reply. We get so many emails, or there's so many things that happen on Instagram. It is really hard to comment. And so often there will be just a couple who have that heart tug and they're like, I'm in, I will reply to the emails, or I'm committed to commenting on this or sharing your story or whatever that is. And I love that aspect of Dex, of both our gems who are going through the experience now and our graduates. I mean, we just continue the love and the support, and it's just magical to witness, really.
Yeah. And that's that final part of community. So if we were to wrap up with some of those key points around how do you really honor where you are in the stage of your healing, the story, and if the story is around visibility, the first is noticing how that has come up for you, and maybe look at the stories that aren't the one that's actually present that you look at all the time, but be open to either some of the mini ones or the things that have happened right before or after that major event for yourself or your family. The other is using some sort of tool or some method to help support you in the internal journey. So for us, it's devoted energy coaching. There's a devoted method that we use for self-coaching. And then that last piece, which is the encouragement of a sacred community of people who are here to witness you stumble and practice and exercise your muscle and be out there in the world. And, and so how can they continue to encourage you and see you for the humanness, your personality, all the things that you're like, I don't like this about me, and other people inside of the sacred container, like our gems, love you for it. They're like, that is you. Oh my gosh, I love you. And then that final piece around business, because we are all here to serve and to have a abundant, prosperous business. And that's having community of people who are going to support you, not break you down, but actually really help encourage you to step it up and be out there in the world. And that's what our fellow gems and alums do for one another. I love that.
So
Thanks.
good.
So good. It is a blessing to serve you. My deepest desire is to bring nourishment to your soul, activate and enliven your inner landscape, and find inspiration through the sacred stories of others and myself, so we remember we are collectively woven. If you would like to learn more about mysticism, spiritual devotion, magic and intuition, sacred leadership, business practices, and devoted energy coaching, please make sure you subscribe to Devoted Way podcast. As I continue to serve, may I humbly ask for a sacred exchange. I would be so appreciative if you would write a love note, otherwise known as a review. Share the episode with your friends and community members, and engage with me on Instagram at Devoted Way. If you have any questions you desire to be answered on Devoted Way podcast, please head over to devotedway.com and send me an email. Stay sacred and discover your path and join the Devoted Way. May magic and miracles occur in your life every day as you co-create a synchronistic new world with the Great Mother. Until next time, this is Sora Schilling.